Salvador Dali threw a great party. We all drank Bacardi, it got kinda gnarly. We're light as a feather, we're tougher than leather. Together we're weirder together.
War. What is it good for?
Absolutely nothing.
That's right, yeah.
Nothing. War is not good for anything.
You know, I've been thinking about how, you know, as geopolitical crisis and all of that's going on, there's not a lot of talk about what effective conflict resolution actually looks like. Like, everyone's like, oh, is it okay for this person to bomb that or whatever? But I was just thinking about a family. Like, in our family, which is a microcosm of a geopolitical landscape, there's effective and creative problem solving, and then there's just brute force.
Yeah.
And brute force, I just do not have any experience with it working particularly well.
I know. We need a heart phoenix, River's mom, who's
Peace building.
She's very good at that kind of thing, like bringing in, you know, just conflict resolution.
Yeah, just communication. Like, it just seems like, I mean, I don't want to sound like an old hippie, but it just seems like communication and listening are such vital and are so, it's like they've completely been left off the table as a means of resolving international, you know, disputes or whatever.
Hear, hear.
There you go.
I don't know if hear is the right.
Aye, aye. Speaking of activism, geopolitical tensions and whatnot, we watched that new John and Yoko doco last night. What was it called again?
1-to-1, I believe.
1-to-1.
The name of a concert that I feel like they had an idea for a concert and then they kept changing what it was for because there were so many causes. But it's a really good documentary, people.
But it was actually super interesting why the theme of the concert got changed, because John Sinclair and Abby Hoffman and Jerry Rubin and that world of activists in the 60s through the 70s, they wanted to basically incite a riot outside the Democratic Convention, and John and Yoko were hardcore, you know, non-violent protesters, and so they split off and did their own thing. But our story, you know, John and Yoko play a very like funny and specific role in the story of our relationship.
Yeah, our first date, you invited me to see a John and Yoko documentary that was about their love story and their relationship. And it was so intense. Like, we were sitting the movie on a first date. I highly recommend, do not see a very enmeshed couple.
You highly do not recommend.
I highly do not recommend, because it was so it was like going through a very enmeshed, intense marriage, which I wanted desperately and got. Thank the Lord I got it. Like, I want that and I have that.
But it was a little soon. You think I laid out my mission statement a little early in the proceedings?
Yeah, but I feel like was that the date where we held hands and you felt awkward?
No, that was the King's Speech. That was later when we were dating. When I've always found holding hands in a movie to be a little complicated, because it's like a long time and you're sitting there, and once you hold hands, if you want to pull away, does it like, you don't want it to be communicated as like a rejection?
I can't hold hands either, like walking down the street, not because I don't want to, I can't get the rhythm of it or something. And whenever I used to hold my kid's Goldie's hand, I did in a way she hated, where I like put my pinky a certain way and she was always like changing her hands.
Classic mother-daughter tension.
I know.
But with John and Yoko,
yes.
I remember, was it in that doco, I was really inspired that they stayed in someone's house, and the person said early in the morning, the next morning, they heard them having sex and they were both making sounds like different jungle animals. And he was saying, like, even the way they made love was creative. They were two artists at it, and I loved that.
This one is sort of about the time they got out of England, moved to New York before they moved to their big fancy Upper West Side famous Dakota apartment, and they lived in the Village. And so, you know, this is after John has left the Beatles. He's very wealthy, obviously, but he had the dream, the big country house, and then he did Imagine there, and my godfather played on that album, bass. You know, he had this life, and I think Yoko felt trapped there. She was like, I don't want to live in the country. But for John, it was the dream. All of the big musicians and, Monty Python and all these people who did well would get a house in the country in France or England. Yeah. And Yoko's like, okay, you've had it. Let's go to New York City. They lived in a little apartment, and it was an amazing documentary. It's for so many reasons. I saw so clearly, I don't know if it's because of the time we live in now and the further we move away from sexism and racism again.
Yeah, we've solved those problems.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But it's a little farther away. But Yoko got so bashed, like for being Asian and strong and a woman. Like it's so crazy how awful that was. And the more time away from it, the more I'm seeing clearly like, God, she had a rough time. And just because she was so smart and because people thought she took John away from them, and he valued her, and she didn't behave like some of these other wives that just sat in the background.
And also, not to mention, when you look at Yoko as an artist, she was so far ahead of the game in every sense.
Oh, man.
And I'm going to say this down the barrel of the camera. If you do not appreciate Yoko Ono, you're a Philistine. Yoko Ono, the way John Lennon looked up to Yoko Ono, it reminds me too of the way David Bowie went on tour playing keyboards for Iggy Pop. That you can have people who have much more commercial success, but they know what heat is. They know what artistry is. And when they find it, they want to absorb it and suck it up. And if you can appreciate John Lennon, you have to realize he saw something, because he was very connected to where culture was going.
Yeah.
He saw something in Yoko's work that was just so far ahead of the game and underappreciated.
Yeah, and
and still is.
Yes, and still is. And yeah, she's still going. And he didn't stop his career. He was just as big of a what's it called? A sweater boy, an absolute nightmare. He was to explain what that is, you're either a sweater boy or an absolute nightmare. The classic is Sherlock Holmes and Watson. Sherlock Holmes is the absolute nightmare. Watson's the sweater boy. So, but he still could be a big...
Kurt Cobain was a sweater boy. Courtney Love was the absolute nightmare.
Right. Yeah, sort of. But anyway, he still got to be himself, but he also let her be herself. And seeing her perform, I don't know, I always appreciated her art 100%, but I really saw, I don't know if I've watched her performing live or something. Maybe I've been just listening to her, and she was like, Lou Reed, or I don't know, she was so ahead of her time.
I always appreciated Yoko's visual art and poetry and more conceptual work.
Yeah.
And then once I took mushrooms at Sean Lennon's house and he played me one of her records, he was like, you're on mushrooms. You got to listen to this. And he played me Yoko's music. And for the first time, I actually grasped it. And what a force.
Yeah.
What an unbelievable force. Has your feeling about the different Beatles changed as you've gotten older in terms of which ones you appreciate?
Well, when I was really little, I guess I separated them, because how could you not? Because it was their press always was the four.
Sure.
The four. How do they call them?
The Fab Four?
Fab Four. I think when they broke up, I followed all their careers so deeply, even Ringo, because again, not to kind of,
Ringo is like the little kid's favorite always.
I know, this is a very name-droppy podcast at the moment, but my godfather, again.
It's usually not, is it? Yeah.
But he did the artwork
yeah.
for Revolver album, and then he did the artwork for Ringo had a...
Yeah, Klaus Vormann.
Ringo had a solo album. So I got so into it. And so I loved Ringo's, album. But then, of course, there's George, and then obviously John and Wings. I mean, come on. Yeah, but anyway, when they were together, yes.
Because I'm noticing that affecting.
I think I was an early... I guess little you're Paul, and then I became John.
Again, John, what ages was John for you? Because I have a theory
10,
that under
10.
30, between 10 and 30, your favorite Beatle has to be John. right?
Right.
It just feels like that is like your duty as
And
a
then
young
there's
person.
and then there's George though comes in.
George is for over 30.
Yeah,
You
you're
get
right.
over 30.
You're right.
Paul, I don't know. I don't understand how that works. But
yeah, Paul is
like,
little kid, Ringo's little kid.
Yeah, and Paul's also like, as you get older and you realize what mastery of craft
Are we
actually
renaming
is.
our podcast? It's just like it's
like
another
joking,
Beatle,
yeah,
another
the
Beatles.
world doesn't need it.
No, but listen, I had this amazing. We had a terrible sort of sad loss of a friend of ours, but what came to mind because a memorial is coming up. So I was thinking of when John died. For 10 minutes, I said all the world had a silence for 10 minutes. But you said, I don't know if a whole world.
Yeah, look, I understood the emotional exaggeration.
Yeah.
But yes, it affected.
But anyone, it was announced on the radio all over the world. And we went to, not Central Park, but they did one there, but Griffith Park, which is a huge park. And me and my old friend Karis and my brother, I was 10, I think. And we sat around a candle for 10 minutes in silence, and the whole park was packed. Everyone had a moment. Everyone in the world.
Yeah.
But I wrote to my brother and Karis, like, do you remember that? And they were like it was yesterday. It was such a big moment. But back to this.
The doco.
The doco, and then we can
What's it called?
move
One-to-one?
on. One-to-one, we can move on. Right
Netflix,
now,
yeah.
because of the politics and what the wars and whatever's going on, it's really interesting to see because it's the height of the Vietnam War and protests and
there's disillusionment because the 60s didn't work.
Right.
There's a lot of talk about that, like, flower power failed, but we can't stop trying.
yeah. So it was very helpful to see, and it's I just recommend this. It's a high recommendation, one to one.
Yeah, and then the Yoko thing also came up yesterday because we went to Arts Matter put on a little event with a choreographer from Sydney called Chloe Leong and Nico Muhly, who's a modern classical composer.
I was
New York.
shipping him with our friend so hardcore.
Oh yeah, you wanted him and Byron to pair up.
I know, because Byron was behind me, gay, and then he, I think, is gay.
I got that vibe.
And so I was like, are they going to hook up after this?
Yeah.
That's all I got out of the talk. No, I'm kidding.
No, but it was a great talk, and it was Nico Muhly is like worked with Björk and the National, and I mean all.
He's a modern classical,
contemporary classical composer,
and brilliant to listen to.
Yeah,
right?
they were really getting into but he's worked with Yoko, and Sean introduced him to Yoko, and he said because Yoko's got a reputation of being just intimidating to work with because you're trying to when you work for someone you want to make them happy.
One good thing about this doc is that their phones were bugged, so John Lennon decided to record all their conversations. So you really hear Yoko not wheeling and dealing, but dealing with people. And she's so masterful at just the way she communicates and talks. It's a fun documentary as well. And it's hard to find things that we watch together apart from reality. Well, this is reality.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I like old movies and blah, blah, blah.
No, that's true.
So back to this
But
talk.
so wait, back to Nico Muhly and Chloe Leong. But I loved hearing, because our world in music and film and TV and stuff like that and podcasting is so dominated by the experience on social media.
Right.
I found it really interesting hearing two people in what you'd call more classical arts.
A dancer, choreographer, and
dancer and a classical composer.
Yeah.
Really talking about the use of space, the use of body. It was just really, it was like almost back to the fundamentals of almost like Greek, the arts of the way like classical arts were meant to be consumed and talked about. And I just loved hearing two really smart people. What's funny?
Oh, I'm just laughing when you said classical arts. My best friend's kid, I was babysitting him, and he was probably like 12, and he was in this school that was like a unique school in LA that taught like Shakespeare and like it was not like Waldorf, but it was like a sort of like very crunchy East Side school,
It was
but
like progressive baby geniuses.
something like that. And he said, will you test me on my quiz? And I said, oh yeah, sure. And he just started doing these postures, and I was like, wait, is this it? And he said, yeah. Oh, I'm doing forms like Greek, like old theater forms.
Yeah,
and
they were like poses from Greek theater.
I was like, Oh, okay. Yeah, great. I'm sure you're going to get 100%. Do they have grades at your school? I don't know.
But isn't that stuff, I don't know, I feel like
I think that's
stuff,
brilliant, by the way. I'm like not putting it down.
No, because all that stuff, it's like the way Chloe Leong was talking about working in experimental dance, and that they really heavily emphasize having classical training, even if you're going into experimental, more progressive mediums. Because it's like drawing and stuff, like the people that learn figure drawing and really learn all that and then can go into abstraction with just an amazing knowledge of right?
Yeah, I'm sure it's good. I have not been classically trained.
So do you feel like I'm shaming you?
No, I'm sure you're right. That's what they say.
But I haven't also.
No, I do. It's admirable when people Picasso or whatever, like, I don't know, Warhol or whoever, I guess they train and then they throw it all away, but you've got that behind you.
But I also think it's not all
I can read music.
You can?
Yes.
You haven't shown me that.
You don't know that?
I didn't know
Very slowly, but I don't play.
What are the names? Do you know the names of the staff?
Yeah. Every Good Boy Does Fine, and FACE.
Yeah, FACE. There you go. So, but I
Good
think,
boys do fine always? No.
Yeah, good boys deserve fruit always.
Right.
But I think even if you're not like deeply classically trained, to me it was more just also about knowing your history, which I don't want to be too much of an old head, because I also just love kids who just get a computer and make music and do whatever they want. But there is something about moving forward into the future based on an understanding of the history of the medium you're working in. That's like super powerful.
Yeah.
Right?
I agree.
Okay, there you go. So you have that. You're interested in your history.
Oh, I love history. Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah.
100%. And our friend was a bit of a disruptor, because then, of course, the conversation got into, are you scared AI is going to replace you? And everyone got like uptight and a little bit like, it can't, because it can't replace you. And then our friend Byron was like, yeah, but it can be good too. And then again, it reminds me of like whoever's driving the train or whatever, it's like the right people doing that will be great. And it's
that's the quote going around that David Lynch apparently said to Natasha Lyonne about AI, that it's just a pencil.
Right. So, I don't, people are afraid of being replaced and erased. Mm-hmm. And that's, fear of, not having enough or dying or whatever.
Yeah, fear of the other.
Yeah, I had a really heavy thought while the lecture was going on, which was in a crazy house that I've never seen in Sydney. There's these like mad houses that they're like Point Piper, and they're right over the water. And I've looked up at them from like little harbor beaches, and it was just this crazy house. But I had a thought that somebody was not wishing me well in my life, who I can't say.
Wait, the evil eye. You were experiencing the evil eye.
No. It's someone I know. But yeah, maybe she's trying to. Okay. But I thought she wants to like erase me. That was my thought, my lucid thought.
So what are you going to do about this paranoia that has shown up in your life? Yeah.
Nothing. Okay. Just understand where she's coming from.
It's been interesting, because going to that thing yesterday, which I loved. I just loved hearing artists talk about. I know, I felt
so mature and sophisticated.
And I'd gotten to go the week before. I heard Jacob Collier talk at the Sydney Conservatorium. Zilbs invited me, and it was amazing. Like, Jacob Collier, I guess, just carved out some time to talk to the students. And I mean, if you're a jazz student at the Sydney Conservatorium and you get to have a private audience with Jacob Collier, it was just awesome. And it really made me think, his relationship to music. I mean, a lot of it was so theory-based that quite a lot of it went over my head. But emotionally, how deeply he believes in the power of music to affect who we are and how we feel, it just brought me back to like a very visceral and just grounding like appreciation for the medium of sound.
Oh my God, yeah.
It was really cool. He was saying something interesting about AI. He was saying that for him, AI is too infinite to be interesting.
Right.
He said that what is actually interesting to him is not answers, it's questions.
Right.
So all good art should ask questions. So in a way, when we interact with AI, the actual artistry is in the prompt, not in the answer.
Right.
It's not in what's generated, it's in what we're asking. And I just thought that was a very sophisticated and sort of philosophically pure approach to quite a sort of, provocative or problematic kind of thing going on in the world.
And having kind of boundaries is also helps you create, better than not having any.
Yeah. You've been painting.
I've been painting a series. Yeah. It's a very sexy series.
I know, it's so good. I feel like, I don't know. I feel like your sexuality is like, it's been very like the ways you represent it through the book, it's been very like liberating for people. Like we keep hearing people having very big experiences with just how open and honest you are. And I feel like this painting's like an extension of that.
I'm trying to think of what paintings aren't sexy. I guess there's a lot like
The Scream.
Yeah, that's not. That's true. And certain like, I guess, landscapes and maybe, but once you start getting into bodies, painters usually, they just like they're enamored with bodies.
Yeah, well, creativity is sexy, and yes, physicality is sexy.
Yeah,
painting is such a like muscular kind of, what do you call it? Kinetic art form.
Mm-hmm.
I love it so much.
I know, me too.
Yeah, man. I wanted to have a little bit of a rant about something going on in the Australian music industry.
Okay, you mad?
I don't know if I'm mad, but I'm motivated to talk about it. I guess I'm a little mad, sure.
I don't know what you're about to say, but...
So there's this artist I've been following online called Ecca Vandal, who Flea turned me on to. Like when I was talking about Australian artists, Flea was like, don't forget Ecca Vandal. And so I started following her. Awesome artist from Melbourne, really kind of hybrid of a lot of different like rock and funk and hip hop, interesting things going on musically. So I've been following her online. She's currently in New York recording at Electric Ladyland Studios. Travis Barker's laying down drums on this record. I was like, this is something clearly, this artist has got some international momentum going on, right? I don't know what it is. I'm not hearing people in the Australian music industry talking about it. And it really highlights for me how this is such an ongoing issue that we go through over and over and over, where Aussie artists that don't fit the pop mainstream kind of medium kind of get discovered by overseas audiences and overseas parts of the industry. And Australia doesn't get behind them.
Doesn't hype it.
Like there are so many examples. Party Dozen, who I went to see the other night, are like developing a real buzz around the world. Really great. Amyl and the Sniffers obviously like built this audience internationally before Australia really paid attention. Radio Free Alice are selling out venues throughout the UK. A few years ago, Mallrat had that song with Azealia Banks on it. Didn't get an ARIA nod, nothing like that.
Did Jet?
No, Jet were huge.
Okay.
But Jet fall.
I've always had pop-up.
Jet fall into like your classic rock kind of thing. That's easy for Australia to digest.
Do they accept, does Australia accept back once they're a lauded proud?
Yeah, but it's at that point it's too late. And that's like Quivers from Melbourne, who like got signed by Merge, who are arguably like one of the indie labels with the most credibility of anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
Put out Arcade Fire, Superchunk.
So what would you, go on.
Well, I just think part of what the issue is, we've got Triple J, which is essentially a commercial music radio station. That's fine. They can be that. But we don't have like the way KCRW in LA or BBC Radio 6 in the UK, something that actually celebrates things that are cutting edge, not just because they might have the next number one hit.
Right.
And I just think partly to do with the size of our industry, we only know what to do with things that are going for the toppermost of the poppermost.
Right.
You know what I mean? We don't know what to do with
And what would
artists.
the press layout be like? It would be on the radio and then
I just want to see people being excited about it. I think all the music blogs in Australia should be talking about, hey, this artist Ecca Vandal has got this amazing thing. Let's be on top of it in conversation.
How do we do it? I'm motivated.
Well, I think I'm trying to do it
Okay,
here.
all right.
I mean, that's what I'm trying to do. But I do think we're basically, we kind of stand at constant risk of losing our most radical and interesting artists unless they go pop.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think that's sort of like you know, I felt that in my own career. Like, I'm not saying I was like so avant-garde, but I was making indie rock that wasn't made for like to be in the top 10. And I started building an audience in the US before Australia, and that's why I ended up leaving. And I just think Australia needs a pathway where we can get behind artists that actually offer alternatives and aren't designed to be funneled into the top 10. Like, we really need a way to support these kinds of artists, you know?
It's truth.
So I don't know. It's just something I'm really
I love
thinking
it.
about.
I love it.
Because, you know, I didn't have a hit until my 4th record, but the support that got me there all came internationally.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, I love it.
So I don't know. I don't know what it looks like. I'm playing a benefit for FBI radio on this week. I'm speaking at an FBI fundraiser. I mean, we just need more of these grassroots kind of platforms that have a different goal in mind. Because when you think about artists like in the UK, like PJ Harvey, like artists that have had a very long road as essentially more experimental artists, like there's been support, the support, and I can't taking it seriously. So anyway, I'm just been really excited for this artist watching and going like, why aren't I seeing all the Aussie music blogs posting about it? I don't get it.
Yeah.
So that's that.
I'm
that's
with you. I love it.
And then Amel and the Sniffers are going to be supporting AC/DC. I think it should be the other way around. I don't know. It's fine. AC/DC should be opening for Amel and the Sniffers. That's fine though.
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah, it's good. What else? What else has been going on for you? We went to we had that fun dancing night at Frida's recently.
That was really good.
That was really good. With Byron and Chris and Carla were all DJing.
We mixed up our friend group, and then our friend...
we had Lauren from Centennial World, Lauren Meisner, friend of the pod, came out with Sean.
And then our friend Lola
and Naomi,
was enamored with her partner's beard. And then within...
with Lauren's partner's
beard. Yeah, within one moment of meeting him, she was like grabbing his beard, which was cute.
I think if you grew up with any connection to farm life in Australia, a good beard is just gets you right in the nostalgia for what a man used to be. You know?
I know. Yeah. You've got a little bit of a beard.
A little bit of scruff.
We have some questions.
That's going to be in our other episode.
Oh, that's right.
But I don't know. You could, if you wanted, I'm just suggesting, if you wanted, you could ask me about my upcoming tour.
I have a question.
Do you? What is that?
How is it going with your upcoming tour for Awake is the New Sleep? I reposted Away with the Pixies.
That's from Grandpa Wood.
I'm getting everything wrong, but still, it's hyping, a little hype.
The other night, I didn't answer your question directly, and you got really kind of angry at me.
Yes.
And I said, Ione, the hypocrisy in this moment is undeniable. We have built an entire podcast on the fact that you don't answer my questions directly.
Mine's from being a dingbat, but also a little bit the reason why you answer indirectly. This is the couples corner now of the episode. Your anxiety about doing the right thing and hopping on the action. Like if I say that rug is frayed, you'll like immediately, well, you don't care about rugs. But if you cared about something, you'd hop up and start fixing it or making a call, even if it's just like a comment.
So are you saying I'm too attentive to your needs?
You're too attentive to it. No, but I'm saying the reason why I think you answer indirectly is because you think you're like getting in trouble or you have to do something. So you'll give a long kind of answer, not like, do you want to drive or do you want me to drive? And you might say like, you won't say yes or no.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Because you're sort of, but I do that too.
But still, the amount of garden path tours
I understand.
You take me on,
I understand.
Like, give me a little grace. Let me ramble for 30 seconds.
Of course.
I feel like I've earned it as an active listener.
That we've been together for 20 years or something. Yeah. This is the first time I've ever said that. That you don't answer directly.
But it's bugged you for a long time.
Well, you're probably, but not that much. But I'm just saying, I have given you.
Yeah, that's fair.
But it didn't really bug me that much until recently, or I was more aware of it recently. I'll
Awake is New Sleep. It's an album I made. Are you? Can you name any of the songs off it?
Of course. No Right Angles.
There you go.
Gamble's not on it.
Yeah, it is.
Oh,
It is.
Gamble,
Yeah.
Everything for Love, obviously.
Okay, that's, you've proven your fandom.
Catch
That's okay.
My Disease. Wait.
that's-
Apple Candy?
Yeah, you got them
Let
all.
me see if I could do one more.
Okay.
I love that album.
Okay. Do you want a clue?
Yeah.
There's one that is on a lot of industry super
right.
ads and
Okay.
has put food on our table. Quite a
Okay.
bit
All
over
in
the last
this.
2
We're
decades.
all in
There
this
you go.
together.
Yeah.
It
Which
has.
I do think we're all in this together. That song came out a year before High School Musical had a song called "We're All in This Together." In there, I do.
Also,
feel
you
like,
had a happy song when the other happy song.
No, but that one I wrote before Pharrell's one, but he put his out first.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
okay.
That's
Whatever.
fine.
Hey,
Listen,
you can't.
it's
yeah.
okay.
But anyway, how's it going? It is planning this tour has been. It's probably much like with your memoir. It's like surprisingly emotional.
Yeah.
I'm just so not a nostalgic person, but I also haven't let myself be. I think what makes Sammy run nature of show business, of like you're always moving forward. In some ways, I haven't allowed myself to stop and reflect and pause and enjoy past achievements.
Yeah.
And there's something about this record in particular that it was like before I got too deeply involved in all the cults and all that kind of thing, that in a way I've been a little scared to look back on, because it's kind of like the love songs you wrote at the beginning of a dysfunctional relationship.
Oh, interesting.
And in a way, my heart was pure and everything was working then. You know what I mean?
Was
It was like, I'm a casual heroin user. Everything's going great.
You weren't really, but
No, I'm saying it's
your
that kind of
heroin was cults for a while.
Exactly.
But wait, was this after Claire?
Yeah. It was right. That was as we broke up.
And the songs that made her fall in love with you would have been
No, that was earlier. That was
Noise
Grandpa
Addict.
Wood, I
Yeah.
think was that record.
Yeah.
And then Something to Remember Me By was like when we were getting together and that. And Breathing Tornadoes. Yeah. But yeah, so it's just been
You said that with so much like
What do you mean?
swagger.
Breathing Tornadoes. But yeah,
yeah.
I don't know. I've just been like really willing to look at my past.
I'm
in
so
new
happy
ways.
for you because when we got together, I was so into nostalgia. Only like all our friends would remember when you did that? And remember when we used to go here in the 80s and the early 90s? It was just like nostalgia. Even, yeah.
Are we changing personalities? You're going to be like at raves with Nina Geraci and I'm going to be wearing period dresses around the living room in like a fantasy world of who are the romantic filmmakers that you love? The really gay
Merchant
Ivory. Yeah, I'll be like floating around in period dresses pretending
if
I'm
you
in a
at least
Merchant Ivory
watch
film.
Merchant Ivory movies with me, but you wouldn't be dressed like that. You'd be who was the designer where you wore
Kenny Hash.
Kenny Hash.
Yeah.
He cut off the sleeves of jackets.
Yeah, and then that's that story. I wore those. Kenny was cutting off blazers for me, and I'd wear them over a long shirt. And I was at Sundance one time. And I was standing there being interviewed for something, and Beck wanders over to me, and I see like we chat for a minute, and he like gives me a bit of an up and down, and then 2 weeks later he's on SNL wearing cut off blazer.
Was it at least Kenny's?
No, but I mean that is Beck's genius. Beck is such a cultural collage genius scavenger.
I'm so happy I moved to Australia, but I was just getting to hang with Beck a little bit.
Yeah,
so I think I'll move back just for Beck.
Okay, yeah, let's move back for Beck. All right. Well, that is the end, I think, of our podcast. Say Everything, Ione's book is still available. If you're one of the rare few that hasn't enjoyed it, please do.
Read it, listen, eat it.
Eat it.
But also your tour's coming up, which is going to be bellissima.
Awake as a New Sleep 20th anniversary tour. Oh, also, We Together put out a single by a great Sydney band called Fvneral, spelt Fvneral, and they've got a launch for that on Friday night, and I'm going to be DJing. There's a DJ Dad Bod set.
DJ Dad
It's called
Bod.
Front Door. It's a great single by Fvneral. So got some spins on Triple J this week, so that's good. And and if you want to join our mailing list, please do. Link is in the show notes.
We've got a pick of the week.
Yeah.
Simple.
We'll turn you on. We'll take care of you. You don't worry.
We'll turn you on.
You come over to us. We'll take care of you. We'll share some cool stuff with you.
Nice.
Beautiful babies.
Beautiful babies.
That's a wrap.
Yeah.
Together we're weirder together.